Hello, everyone, and today we're going to be talking about the elements of poetry. So, we've been learning a lot about figurative language, and we're going to be starting to write our own poems. So, I want you to think about what kind of poem you want to write. There's no right or wrong way for writing a poem. It really is all about how you're feeling and your creativity, but there are a couple important parts that you need to think about while you're writing. So the first question is, what is poetry? So poetry is writing in which special intensity is given to the expression of feelings and ideas by using style and rhythm. This is one of my favorite quotes. It says, "Poetry is like painting a picture with words." And I think that that's so true. When I listen to poems or I read poems, I definitely can visualize what the author is trying to tell me. So there's four kind of big important parts that I want to talk to you about. The first one is imagery. So we talk a lot in our story writing about using show not tell for parts of it. The thing with poetry is it's all show and no tell. And you can use poetry and create poetry by using those figurative language pieces that we've been learning about. And we usually want to base it on a theme, so what you want your poem to be on. Poetry can also be about rhythm, and no, that doesn't mean rhyme. It just means how you want your poem to be performed. Maybe that's based on how many syllables you have in a line. Maybe that's based on where you want the stress to be. You definitely want your poem to be based on sound. So do you want your poem to be overall really soft and harmonious and fluid? Or do you want your poem to be really structured and sharp and strong? So that'll definitely change based on what your theme is. And then the last thing to think about when you're writing a poem is the use of line. So one line in a poem is usually the sentence. Sometimes authors choose to have one word on one line. Sometimes authors can choose for the last word of a line to rhyme. So there's lots of things to think about with that. The first thing we're going to focus on specifically is imagery. So before you even start writing your poem, it's really important to think about what your theme is. What's the central idea? What do you want the poem to be about? And you can show that theme through the use of figurative language and making your words come to life. So here's an example of a poem I found that was based on imagery. I am the rain, gently patting the rooftop, the drop, sliding down your window. I glide past the glow of your lamp, clinging to the warmth of your fingertips as they press against the glass. Losing grip, I slip away. So the first thing that this author used was personification, turning the raindrop into a person so that we can feel for that raindrop and we can understand that raindrop. The second idea was using five senses, clinging to the warmth of your fingertips. So when I read that, I could feel that. I also saw when they said past the glow of your lamp. It totally set a mood and an image for me. And the last one is onomatopoeia. So it's not specifically saying drip, drop, but the sound of that word, the drop, made me hear it. Next is rhyme. So it's how you want your poem to be read. This could be based on the syllables, which is kind of like the timing of the words in the line. This could be based on how you want it stressed, and it could be based on if you want it to rhyme. So here's an example of rhyme called December leaves. And you can see based on the letters which words rhyme, and they kind of have a rhyme pattern, which is kind of cool. December leaves. The fallen leaves are cornflakes that fill the lawn's wide dish. And night and noon, the wind's a spoon that stirs them with a swish. The sky's a silver sifter, a sifting white and slow, that gently shakes on crisp brown flakes, the sugar known as snow. So if you want, before you start writing, you can decide on, that's called a rhyme scheme. So they decided on A, B, C, C, B, and then they repeated it in both stanzas. And the letter is the words that rhyme. Really cool. Syllables. So this is growing syllables for each line. A tiny bumblebee visits flowers and flowering trees, flying in the breeze, looking for golden pollen, gathering nectar tirelessly, endlessly flying from perfumed rose to his home, colony, and hungry queen. So each line was growing in syllables. And then the last example is stress. So this author uses bold letters to show where they want to hear the stress from the reader. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So you can hear that there's a stress on the words or the syllable of the word that they bolded. Really cool choices. You want to think about the sound of your poem. Do you want it to have a gentle flow overall, or do you want it to be sharp and aggressive? So that'll be based on your choice of theme. Here are two examples. So here's a soft and gentle example. Watery lights. Watery lights glistening off ripples of water. Your history is as long on the dusk of night. Crickets sing a hum. The wind is soft and gentle, just a soft breath. Leaves float on their way, no one knows where. Blades of grass point the way, tiny lights flickering on a canvas top. So that's a very soft and flowy poem, whereas this one is very sharp and hard. A channel passage. The damaged ship lurched and slithered, quiet and quick. My cold gorge rose, the long sea rolled. I knew I must think hard of something or be sick, and could think hard of only one thing. You alone could hold my fancy forever. And with you memories come, sharp pain and dole. Now there's a choice, heartache or tortured liver, a seasick body or a you-sick soul. Do I forget you? Retchings twist and tie me. Old meat, good meals, brown goblets, up I throw. Do I remember? Acid return and slimy, the sobs and slobber of last year's woe, and still the sick ship rolls. 'Tis hard, I tell ye, to choose twist love and nausea, heart and belly. So it's definitely about heartache and body pain. It looks like it's maybe from the time of the Great Migration, as maybe a Coeur de Bois man is traveling to Canada and leaving his loved one. The next thing you want to think about when you're writing your poem is the use of line. So if you put one word on one line, it's a really important word for the poem. You can base each line on having growing or decreasing syllables, and you can choose to group certain lines together, which is kind of like a paragraph, but in poetry we call it a stanza. So here's the example of the stanza. It's called Today is Your Luck. Today on your birthday, consider your luck. You could have been born as a pig, cow, or duck. You could have been born crying oink, quack, or moo. You're lucky you didn't wind up in a zoo. So they kind of grouped each one based on ideas. One was talking about the animals, and then one was becoming the animals. So stanzas are paragraphs. This second one is really cool because it uses line to not only create a poem, but also an image. A sparkle way up high, one to make all your wishes upon. High in the nighttime sky, blinking like a broken traffic light, shining above us like a canopy, with holes punched in it growing bright. Each night we look up at them in amazement. They hold our hopes and dreams. Their twinkle assures us that very thing will be all right. Star. I love that one. And then this one is based on syllables. To him, she was rain. To her, he was sunshine. Together, they made rainbows. So it's based on kind of that flow of words. So what your job is to think about those elements of poetry. There's no right or wrong way of writing a poem. Step one, create your theme. What do you want to write about? And then think about how each of those four elements is going to be included in your poem. We cannot wait to read it.